Welcome everyone to the Lord of Mysteries novel summary series on Ani Monolith. In the previous part, Old Neil begins teaching Klein the basics of mysticism, focusing on symbolism and its importance in divination and mystical abilities. Klein demonstrates some understanding but still learns a great deal from Old Neil. Neil advises Klein not to rely solely on mystical skills but also to cultivate his knowledge through study. After the lesson, Klein writes a formal request using a typewriter to seek Captain Dunn Smith's approval for his Divination Club membership. Dunn approves the request, and Klein, feeling motivated, reminds himself to continue practicing cogitation, shooting, and furthering his historical knowledge. In a chemical laboratory with full equipment, in the Hall family's mansion in the Queen District, Backlund City, Audrey is diligently preparing spectator potion according to the formula shared by the Hanged Man. Then when she saw a milky white solution emitting smoke, Audrey smiled happily because she succeeded in preparing it the first time. Audrey couldn't help but feel excited because before she thought she would have to fail several times to complete it, so she had prepared a surplus of precious materials, but now they were no longer needed. As for the precious materials that were almost impossible to obtain, Audrey was still able to collect them thanks to the Hall family's wealth and connections. While Audrey was admiring her achievements, she suddenly heard the voice of her pet dog Susie. It turned out that maid Annie was approaching the laboratory, so Susie barked to signal her mistress. After pretending to be sick so Annie could find a way to cancel an appointment with a lady, Audrey quickly returned to the laboratory. However, before stepping inside, she heard a very loud noise. So Audrey quickly ran in and saw Susie licking a milky white liquid spilling on the floor, and the glass bottle containing the spectator potion was broken. Because of this incident, Audrey had to spend time preparing the spectator potion again. Fortune smiled at Audrey again because she succeeded this time. Then she immediately drank the entire potion without hesitation. At the same time, in the offshore area of Pritz Harbor, an ancient sailboat was anchored in the harbor on an island that was always covered by whirlwinds. A man with blonde hair and a black cloak embroidered with a lightning bolt was talking to Alger about why Alger did not join the mandated Punishers unit or a reputable bishop of the Church of the Lord of Storms. Which he chose instead, become a Blue Avenger pirate? In response to Sansa's question, Alger replied that this country belonged to the Lord of Storms, so he would do anything as long as it met the Lord's wishes. Hearing that, Sans admired Alger's will and sincerity, but he did not know that after he left, Alger muttered that people who do not know enough cannot understand this choice. On Friday at Blackthorn Security, Klein was having lunch with Roseanne and Brett. After calculating that going home from the company for lunch would cost a lot of money by horse-drawn carriage, Klein decided to imitate the staff's habit of eating at the office. Luckily, the price for a meal is not too expensive and is also nutritious, so Klein is quite satisfied. While eating, Roseanne lamented that this time no Nighthawks were staying for lunch. Hearing that, Brett said that a previous crime related to churches had occurred on Gold Corn Street, so 2 Nighthawks were asked by the police to assist. At this moment, there was a knock on the office door, then a man wearing a fedora and a black suit with wet shoulders walked in because it was raining outside. His hair had turned gray. He looked at the 3 Klein people and asked, "Is this where the mercenary squad used to be?" After receiving Roseanne's confirmation, he quickly said that he wanted to delegate a mission. Hearing that, Klein felt quite funny and also sympathized with the other person, because Blackthorn Security Company is only a name, but not everyone has the right to know about its real work. As for Roseanne, she is choosing to refuse the strange man's entrustment because the current staff is not enough. Because of the 6 official members of the Nighthawks, Captain Dunn Smith was invited by the bishop to go to the cathedral to negotiate something, and Leonard Mitchell was guarding the Cheney's gate on behalf of Dunn. Particularly, the 2 Beyonders corpse collector Fry and sleepless lawyer Rydeen went to Gold Corn Street to coordinate with the police department to investigate a theft related to churches. Another sleepless, Cornley White, is taking a break, and another midnight poem next to Leonard, Sigatron, is going to the northern suburbs to conduct daily patrols of the Raphael Cemetery. As for the remaining 2 Beyonders, Old Neil, due to his old age and weak health, has not been on a mission for a long time, and Klein is a newbie so he still lacks experience. Then the guest had to leave with regret. After seeing the guest off, Klein, Roseanne, and Brett chatted happily for a while, then quickly returned to their work. Because it was still raining, Klein didn't rush home but started taking out the newspaper to read. When reading the news of Tinjan City Honest paper stating that all the criminals who murdered Mr. Welch and Miss Naya have been arrested, the atmosphere of crisis spreading throughout the North area, East area and Gold Corn area will decrease quickly. Welch's father, Mr. McGovern, the bank manager, took his son's body back to Constant City and conducted a solemn funeral. Of course, Klein can understand Mr. McGovern suddenly lost his beloved son, and he suddenly remembered the indescribable pain of his parents when they discovered he was mysteriously missing. Although very sad, Klein had to accept it because he could not find a way back. At the same time, Klein also sympathized with why Mr. McGovern did not invite him to attend the funeral of Welch, who was once his good friend. Some time passed, and the strange man from before continued to come to delegate the task. This time he was invited by Roseanne into the office to wait for the Beyonders to return. Faced with the guest's determination, Klein was extremely curious and asked him where he got the information about the Blackthorn Security Company. It turned out that the customer did not know the company at all, but after many failed attempts to rely on mercenary organizations and private detectives, he happened to meet someone delivering meals to the company's office. Blackthorn, that's why he found his way here. Then the guest said the reason he came here was that after the tragic murder break-in at Hull Square by criminals, the rich people around the square, even the entire Tinjan, felt sad and scared. In addition to increasing the number of guards, they also invited many security guards and private detectives, which is why there is not enough staff at present. Listening to the guest's presentation, Klein was extremely surprised because he was the survivor of the murderous break-in at Hull Square that he had just mentioned. Of course, the truth was hidden, and what the police announced to the press was only to reassure the people. Through the guest's narrative, Klein and Roseanne both couldn't help but feel concerned for Blackthorn Company, because the company's reputation is not widely known at a time when the security profession is increasingly developing currently. However, this also means that Nighthawks have hidden his identity very well. At this moment, Leonard Mitchell walked in and asked who the strange man sitting was. Seeing him, Roseanne immediately became happy and said that this was a client who came to entrust a mission, and she also did not forget to ask that the captain had returned, right? Of course, Leonard confirmed this to be true because he was originally supposed to guard the Cheney's gate to help Dunn Smith. However, the guest seemed very confused because he had been waiting for a long time without seeing anyone enter from the main door. Luckily, Roseanne was smart enough to dispel the guest's doubts. She said that their security company had many different doors. Then Leonard changed the target to the customer. He asked the customer's name and reason for coming to the company with an extremely disrespectful attitude, but the customer quickly answered, "My name is Clee, I'm the merchant's butler, tobacco man Mr. Vickroy. His only son, Elliot, was kidnapped early this morning. We have reported to the police and received special attention, but you are still not reassured." He hoped that through the security team and with our knowledge of Tinjan City, our investigation could be directed in another direction, ensuring that Mr. Elliot was safely rescued. If you can find the robber's hideout, Mr. Vickroy is willing to pay £100 as compensation. If you have a way to successfully rescue Mr. Elliot, the boss is willing to double the reward, to £200. Hearing that, Leonard Mitchell laughed and asked in a tone both skeptical and joking, "It seems that Mr. Vickroy just hopes we find the robber's hiding place. Otherwise, wouldn't he just pay a new reward of £100 to his son?" A tobacco merchant with close connections to the southern growing region wouldn't be able to offer just a reward of £200, right? Under Leonard's questioning, Butler Clee still calmly responded, saying that his boss was just an ordinary businessman. Leonard then asked Roseanne to draft a contract for Clee. Seeing that a company with many staff with special abilities like Blackthorn did not have contract templates available for use in case of need, Klein felt a bit disappointed by this lack of professionalism. Luckily, Roseanne didn't take too much time to prepare the contract, then she gave it to Butler Clee and Leonard Mitchell to sign. Waiting for Clee to finish stamping, Roseanne took the contract into the accounting room to find Mrs. Olean to stamp the certification of Blackthorn Security Company. Then when the mission was accepted, Butler Clee immediately left to wait for good news from Leonard. Leonard then asked Klein if he wanted to form a team with him to search for Elliot. Although Old Neil is a Beyonder, he is always at the company, but due to his old age, he is no longer convenient in investigating and solving cases. As for Leonard, he admitted that he was only good at fighting, shooting, climbing, sensing, and chanting spells along with other supporting tasks, but not including finding people. So Klein's seer ability will be able to support this case a lot. Of course, Klein immediately agreed because he did not want to miss the opportunity to test his abilities in real conditions.